Princess Lyra was laughing when the alarms began. It was not a gentle laugh. It was sharp, bright, and edged with scorn, echoing through the marble hall of the obsidian court. Her silver cloak flowed behind her as she walked, surrounded by guards in black armor, her chin lifted in perfect royal disdain. "Humans," she scoffed, waving a hand as if brushing away dust. "Fragile bones, short lives, loud myths to hide small strength." The ambassadors bowed lower. None dared interrupt her. Lyra had heard the stories since childhood, tales whispered by veterans and traders, humans who stood against impossible odds, humans who fought like storms and refused to die, humans who broke empires with nothing but stubborn will. She had always laughed at them, and she was laughing now. That was when the floor shuddered beneath her feet. The laughter died in her throat. A deep, low alarm boomed through the palace. Once, twice. Red light spilled across the crystal walls, staining everything like fresh blood. Guards snapped into formation, weapons humming to life. Lyra's heart stuttered. "What is this?" she demanded. No one answered. Then the great doors at the end of the hall exploded inward. Not melted, not neatly breached. They were torn open as if something had grabbed them and ripped them apart with bare hands. Smoke rolled in, thick and bitter, carrying the scent of scorched metal. A single figure stepped through. He wore no royal armor, no ceremonial colors, just dark combat plating scarred by old battles, cracked in places, repaired in others. His helmet was gone, clipped to his side. Short, dark hair. Pale skin marked with a thin line of blood at his brow. "Human." Lyra felt a strange, unwelcome chill slide down her spine. "Impossible," one of the guards whispered. The human stopped 10 paces from the royal line and raised his empty hands, slowly, calmly. "My name is Elias," he said. His voice was steady, deep, and tired. "I'm here for the princess." Every weapon snapped toward him. Lyra stepped forward before she realized she was moving. "You," she said coldly, "you broke into a sovereign palace alone." Elias' eyes lifted to hers. They were not wild, not arrogant. They were focused, heavy with something she could not name. "Yes," he said, "alone." Lyra laughed again, but this time it sounded wrong, hollow. "Do you know where you stand, human?" "I do." "Do you know how many warriors surround you?" "I counted," he replied, "before I came in." That earned a ripple of uneasy silence. Lyra's tail flicked behind her, a tail she hated. "Then you are either a fool," she said, "or a liar." Elias tilted his head slightly. "I've been called both." Her guards tightened their grip. The air vibrated with charging weapons. Lyra lifted her hand. "Wait." She did not know why she stopped them. Curiosity, perhaps, or pride, or the quiet voice in her chest that whispered danger not from him, but from underestimating him. "You said you came for me," she said. "Why?" Elias took one step forward. The floor cracked beneath his boot. "I'm here to stop a war," he said, "and you're standing in its way." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You dare accuse me?" "I dare tell you the truth." Something flickered in the room. Not light, not sound, tension. Lyra circled him slowly, studying every scar, every calm breath. He did not track her with fear. He watched her like a soldier watches the edge of a battlefield. "You humans tell stories," she said softly. "That you are strong, that you endure, that you matter." She stopped in front of him. "I see only one man." Elias met her gaze. "That's usually how it starts." The guards moved. Elias moved faster. What happened next shattered Lyra's certainty forever. He did not attack. He endured. Energy bolts slammed into him. He was thrown back, crashed into a pillar, hit the ground hard enough to fracture stone. Gasps filled the hall. Lyra felt a grim, guilty satisfaction. Then he stood up. Slowly. Shaking once, blood dripping from his lip. Still standing. Still walking forward. Weapons overheated, guards faltered, fear crept into trained eyes. Lyra's breath caught. For the first time in her life, the stories did not sound exaggerated. They sounded unfinished. Elias stopped before her again, close enough that she could hear his breathing. "This is your last chance," he said quietly. "Listen to a human before it's too late." Lyra did not answer. She could not, because for the first time, the alien princess who had mocked human power felt something new coil tightly around her heart. Uncertainty, and something dangerously close to awe. The hall was silent, except for the crackle of overheated weapons. Princess Lyra stared at the human standing before her, her thoughts colliding like broken glass. He should have been down, broken, screaming. Instead, Elias stood tall, shoulders squared, blood streaking his cheek like a mark of defiance. Lyra lifted her hand again. Enough. Her guards hesitated. She turned sharply. "Lower your weapons." "Your Highness," a captain began. That was not a request. Reluctantly, weapons powered down. The hum faded, but tension remained, thick and suffocating. Elias exhaled slowly, not in relief but calculation. Lyra noticed it. Everything about him felt measured, restrained, like a storm kept behind locked doors. "You endured a royal firing line," she said. "Why are you still standing?" Elias looked around the shattered hall. "Because if I fall," he replied, "too many people die." Lyra scoffed, though it lacked conviction. "Dramatic." "True," he said simply. She gestured toward a side chamber. "Walk." The word echoed like a challenge. Elias followed without hesitation. The chamber doors sealed behind them, muting the whispers outside. Soft bioluminescent light washed over smooth stone walls etched with ancient symbols of her people's victories. Lyra faced him alone now. "You broke into my palace," she said. "You embarrassed my guards, you questioned my authority. Tell me why I shouldn't have you executed." Elias met her gaze without flinching. "Because I didn't come to threaten you, I came to warn you." She crossed her arms. "About what?" "Your fleet," he said. "The one you sent toward the Helios corridor." Lyra stiffened. "That information is classified." "Not anymore," Elias replied. "They're heading into a trap." Her eyes narrowed. "By whom?" "By people who want you angry," he said. "Who want you to fire first so they can justify burning both our worlds." Lyra felt a flash of irritation. "You expect me to trust a human soldier over my own strategists?" "No," Elias said. "I expect you to question them." She studied him carefully now, not as an intruder, not even as an enemy. "As a puzzle." "You speak boldly for someone surrounded by enemies." Elias' mouth curved faintly. "Humans don't survive by being quiet." Lyra turned away, packing. Her tail flicked again. She hated that he noticed. "All my life," she said, voice lower, "I've been told humans exaggerate their importance, that your strength lies in noise, not substance." She stopped. "Yet you walked through my defenses." Elias' voice softened. "Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just refusing to stop." Her breath caught before she could stop it. For a moment she saw something beneath the soldier. Not arrogance, not aggression. Weariness. "How many wars have you fought?" she asked. "Too many," he answered. "How many did you win?" He hesitated. "That depends on how you define winning." Silence stretched between them. Lyra felt something shift, a crack in the polished certainty she had worn like armor. She had expected a savage, a braggart. Instead, she found a man who carried the weight of survival like a burden. "Why you?" she asked quietly. "Why send a human alone?" Elias looked at the markings on the wall, ancient depictions of queens and fallen stars. "Because I was the one who said you might listen." Lyra laughed softly. "You had faith in me." "No," he said. "I had faith in curiosity." That struck deeper than she liked. An alarm chimed faintly within the chamber. Incoming transmission. Lyra activated the console. A star map flared to life. Red warnings blinked along the Helios corridor. Her fleet. Surrounded. Her pulse quickened. "This could be fabricated," she said. "It could," Elias agreed. "Or it could be the moment everything breaks." She looked at him sharply. "If you're lying." "Then I die," he finished calmly, "along with my people." Lyra studied his face, searching for deceit. She found none. Instead, she saw resolve, fear, hope, all tangled together. She closed the console and turned back to him. "You will remain under guard," she said. "You will not leave my sight." Elias inclined his head slightly. "Fair." Lyra did not miss the flicker of relief in his eyes. As the doors opened and guards moved in, she felt something unsettling bloom in her chest. She had mocked human power, but power, she was beginning to realize, was not always about domination. Sometimes it was about standing in front of a queen and telling her the truth. And she was no longer sure which of them held the greater danger. The Obsidian Court had never felt so quiet. Princess Lyra moved through its corridors with a tension that made her own guards uneasy. Every echo of her boots sounded louder than usual. She could still feel Elias' presence, a weight pressing in her mind like an unanswered question. She had placed him under guard in the inner chamber, but every instinct told her he was not a man who could truly be confined. Not by walls, not by chains, not by fear. Her communicator beeped, a message scrolled across the crystal interface. Red letters, urgent. Disturbance detected at Docking Bay 7. Unidentified craft approaching. Warning, weapons active. Lyra froze. Could it be another human? She muttered, voice low. Or some other faction using this as a distraction? A guard stepped forward. "Highness, we can deploy interceptors." "Not yet," Lyra snapped. "I want to see it." By the time they reached the docking bay, the doors had opened automatically. A sleek ship hovered outside, its hull scarred and dented. But what made her gasp was not the vessel. It was the banner flying from its side. Human insignia, battered but unmistakable. Elias stood at the ship's ramp, waiting. His eyes met hers, calm, unwavering. "Highness," he said simply, "they followed me." Lyra's stomach twisted. "Who?" "People who don't want peace, people who profit from war," he replied. "They're trying to force you into a trap." Her heart pounded. The corridors of her mind were full of alarms. She had thought herself untouchable, invincible. But a single human had shattered that illusion. Lyra turned toward her guards. "Prepare the fleet, but remain defensive, no provocation." "Yes, Highness." She studied Elias, trying to read his expression. There was no fear, no hesitation, only patience and a strange kind of trust. "Why are you still here?" she asked softly. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, "until you see the truth for yourself." Lyra's tail twitched. She hated the way his certainty unsettled her. The docking bay lights flickered. A shadow moved along the walls, a figure she hadn't noticed before. Someone tall, cloaked in black, silent as the void between stars. "Highness," a guard whispered, "an intruder." Lyra's eyes narrowed. The cloaked figure raised a hand. A strange energy flared, blue, violent, dangerous. The guard closest to it screamed as the energy struck, tossing him across the room. Elias moved before anyone could react. He sprinted across the floor, a blur of motion, and collided with the cloaked figure. Lyra watched, frozen. Weapons hummed, shields activated, and yet the human held his ground. Each strike he took, each blow he absorbed, he moved closer to the shadow, unwavering, precise. And then he did something impossible. With one swift movement, he disarmed the intruder and pinned them against the wall. Blue energy crackled around them, the air thick with tension. Lyra's breath caught. She had expected chaos. Death, perhaps victory, but not like this. Elias looked at her, calm but firm. "You see now, don't you?" he asked. "See what?" she whispered. "That human strength is not always about weapons," he said. "Sometimes it's about heart, resolve, refusing to fall when the world expects you to." Her chest tightened. She had mocked humans, belittled them. And yet here in the wreckage of her palace's docking bay, a single human warrior had done what her guards could not. The intruder struggled, but Elias held firm. "You will leave," he said quietly, "and you will tell those who sent you that the queen will not be manipulated." The figure hissed but did not resist further. With a flick of his wrist, Elias released them. They stumbled back, retreating into the shadows. Lyra approached him slowly. Her heart thumped in a way that made her dizzy. "Why?" she began, but words failed her. He wiped a smear of blood from his brow. "Because someone has to stand," he said, "before it's too late." For the first time, Lyra felt a strange heat in her chest. Something more than awe, something like hope. But before she could speak again, her communicator shrieked. "Highness, incoming fleet, they're not yours." Lyra's stomach dropped. Elias looked toward the viewport, frowning. "Looks like the real test is just beginning," he said. And in that moment, Lyra realized that her world, the one she thought she ruled with certainty, was about to fracture. And only a human could have shown her both the danger and the possibility of surviving it. Her hand brushed against his as they moved toward the bridge. It was brief, electric, a spark neither of them could deny. And in that spark, Lyra knew one thing for certain. She had underestimated humans, and this human in particular, at her own peril. The bridge of Lyra's flagship was chaos. Screens flashed red. Tactical reports scrolled too fast to read. The Helios corridor, a narrow passage between star systems, was a death trap lined with hidden orbital mines and automated defense drones. Lyra gripped the console so hard her knuckles whitened. She had sent her fleet here, confident in their superiority, confident in her command. Now all that certainty was crumbling. Elias stood beside her, calm, scanning the same readouts. "Your fleet is walking into a choke point," he said. "They'll be funneled, targeted, destroyed before reinforcements can arrive." Lyra's tail flicked nervously. "And you're certain of this?" "I've been through worse," he said simply. "This is nothing." She wanted to scoff. She wanted to laugh. But something in the way he said it, the quiet confidence laced with fatigue, kept her from speaking. Her fingers danced over the console. Divert the outer wing, pull the vanguard back, attempt a stealth bypass for the support ships. Elias watched silently. Then finally he said, "You're thinking like a human now." Lyra whirled. "What do you mean?" "Fear doesn't stop you, it guides you," he said. "You're adapting, you're listening, that's human." Her pulse quickened, not with anger, but a strange, disorienting awareness. She had mocked humans for their short lifespans and fragile bodies, and yet here, one human was teaching her to survive, to lead, to fight smart, not just with firepower, but with instinct. Alarms blared. Sensors picked up a new threat. A massive human-like warship emerged from the shadows, its energy signature glowing crimson. Lyra froze. "Another human," she gasped. Elias' jaw tightened. "Not friendly." The warship opened fire. Bolts of energy screamed toward the fleet, detonating in brilliant, violent flashes. Her vanguard flinched. The corridor lit up like a star gone supernova. Lyra's stomach knotted. Her hands flew over the controls, redirecting shields, launching countermeasures, issuing orders at a speed she had never reached before. Her chest burned. Her heart raced. And all the while, Elias was beside her, calm, guiding her through the chaos with precise, surgical suggestions. A missile slammed into her flagship's hull. She felt the shudder through the floor. "Brace for impact," she shouted. But it never came. Elias had anticipated it. With a rapid override, he manipulated the targeting systems, redirecting the missile into empty space. Lyra stared at him. Her mind refused to process how a human had saved an entire fleet from certain destruction, without firepower equal to her entire armada. He smiled faintly. "Humans improvise," he said. "We survive by thinking, not by relying on sheer strength." Her chest heaved. She had mocked humans. She had laughed at their so-called myths. And yet here, in the burning heart of the Helios corridor, one human had become the axis upon which her entire world turned. The fleet moved, guided by her decisions, but shaped by his insight. Slowly, carefully, they bypassed the trap, not unscathed, but alive. Lyra sank into the captain's chair, fingers trembling. Her eyes were fixed on the distant stars. For the first time, she felt the heavy weight of gratitude and something deeper, something that made her chest tighten every time she glanced at him. Elias placed a hand lightly on her console. "We're not safe yet," he said. She met his gaze, her heart pounded not with fear but with a strange thrill. "We survived," she whispered. "For now," he replied. A silence fell between them, heavy, electric. The distant flashes of explosions from the corridor painted their faces in alternating light and shadow. Lyra realized something terrifying, something exhilarating. She had underestimated humans. She had underestimated him. And in doing so, she had discovered that strength could take forms she had never imagined. Her fingers brushed against his again, almost by accident. A spark of heat flared through her, igniting something she could not name. But before either of them could speak, a new alarm rang, different this time. Personal, close. A warning someone or something had boarded her flagship. Lyra's eyes narrowed, Elias' lips tightened. The real danger was just beginning. The corridors of Lyra's flagship were suddenly alive with whispers, hisses, and the faint hum of unseen energy. The crew moved cautiously, weapons drawn, scanning shadows that seemed to shift on their own. Every light flicker cast doubt on reality. Lyra's tail flicked nervously. She had faced rebellion, sabotage, and threats from rival kingdoms, but this, the sudden, silent boarding of her own ship, felt personal. Elias moved beside her, silent and precise. Each step he took was deliberate, measured, and somehow heavier with purpose than the pounding of her own heart. "Who could have gotten in without detection?" she whispered. "Someone with inside knowledge," Elias replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes scanned every shadow. "Or someone counting on your trust." Lyra froze. That stung sharper than any blade. Trust, a dangerous commodity in royal circles, and yet she had given him a measure of it, too easily. They reached the central corridor near the fleet command deck. The air shimmered with faint energy, barely visible, but enough to make Lyra's skin prickle. "There," Elias whispered, pointing to a seam in the wall. A panel slightly misaligned, just enough to hide a shadowy figure. Lyra raised her blaster, but Elias stopped her with a hand. "Wait, let me." In a sudden, fluid movement, he lunged forward. The figure turned. A woman, elegant, silver-haired, with eyes that mirrored Lyra's own in cold calculation. She smiled, thin and sharp. "Ah, the lost human admirer," she said, voice like silk and poison. "And the queen so easily distracted." Lyra's stomach dropped. She recognized the emblem on the woman's uniform, a rival faction, one that had long coveted the Helios corridor. Elias' jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have come here." The woman laughed. It echoed down the corridor, mocking. "I could say the same, human, you're bold, foolish," and she, her gaze shifted to Lyra, "is distracted by you." Lyra's chest burned, not with anger, but with a strange, jealous heat she hadn't expected. Her hands shook as she gripped her blaster. "You won't leave here alive," she said, her voice steady despite the surge of emotion. The woman tilted her head. "Neither of us will, I suspect, but you've become weak." Elias stepped in front of Lyra, shoulders squared. "Not weak, careful." "Careful," Lyra snapped, though her voice wavered. "Careful doesn't stop the enemy." Elias' eyes softened briefly. "Neither does pride." The woman struck first. Energy arcs burst from her hands, cutting through the corridor's dim light. Elias moved instantly, deflecting and countering with astonishing speed, his body a blur of motion. Lyra watched, caught between awe and fear. This human, her supposed myth, moved with a precision, courage, and resilience she had never imagined. But the fight was not simple. The woman was skilled, each movement calculated. Each blow pushed Elias closer to the wall, closer to danger. "Move," Elias shouted. "Get to the command deck." Lyra hesitated. Her instincts screamed to fight, to stay, to assert command. But something deeper, something raw, compelled her to follow him. They sprinted through the winding corridors, energy trails snapping behind them. The woman pursued, relentless. At a junction, Lyra paused, suddenly realizing the truth. The woman was not just attacking Elias. She was testing her response, her judgment, her ability to lead under pressure. Lyra's hands shook as she took in the flickering lights, the wounded crew, the advancing enemy. Her mind raced, heart pounding. She could no longer rely solely on status or strength. She had to act, think, survive. And then she did something impulsive. She grabbed a nearby energy panel, ripped it free, and flung it toward the enemy. Sparks flew. The woman staggered, surprised. Elias seized the opening, striking with lethal precision and sending the intruder crashing into the corridor wall. They didn't stop to breathe. They moved, forward, always forward. Lyra's chest heaved as adrenaline coursed through her. "Why are you like this?" she demanded, voice breaking between fear and something else she refused to name. Elias glanced at her, eyes intense. "Because giving up is not an option." Lyra swallowed hard, feeling a mix of awe, anger, and something deeper. Something that made her pulse race in ways she had never known. The command deck loomed ahead. Beyond it, the real battle awaited. But for the first time, Lyra did not feel alone. She had mocked human power, she had doubted him. And yet, in the fire of boarding ships and betrayal, she realized she had never felt more alive. But the corridors still whispered danger. The intruder was only one of many, and the fleet, her fleet, was still in peril. The command deck smelled of ozone and scorched metal. Lyra's fingers hovered over the controls, her breath shallow, every muscle tense. Outside the viewport, the Helios corridor stretched like a lethal vein through the galaxy. Red warning lights pulsed across her consoles, marking every missile, mine, and enemy ship. Elias stood behind her, silent. His eyes tracked every blip, every movement, calm, focused, like a predator in the midst of chaos. Lyra swallowed hard. How do you stay so calm?" she asked. "Experience," he said simply, "and knowing what matters." She glanced at him sharply. "What matters?" "Survival, and the people who can't fight for themselves." Lyra's chest tightened. She realized suddenly how much weight he carried, more than any queen could understand. He was human, yet in some ways stronger than anyone she knew. The comms beeped. A distorted voice rang out. "Princess Lyra, surrender or watch your fleet burn." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "And if we do?" Elias stepped closer. "Then we fight smarter, not harder." She studied him, the heat of admiration, and something dangerously close to desire rising in her chest. He had shattered every preconception she had about humans, about power, about what it meant to endure. And yet, in this moment, she found herself questioning something more: herself. The battle outside intensified. Enemy ships moved like a coordinated swarm, lasers snapping toward her fleet. She issued commands but paused. Then, instinctively, she followed Elias' suggestion, evasive maneuvers timed with feints, decoys, and precise strikes. The fleet survived, not unscathed but alive. Every ship still operational was proof of their strategy, of their cooperation. "Impressive," Lyra admitted quietly, her voice almost lost in the hum of the engines. Elias turned, eyes meeting hers. "Not impressive, necessary." She wanted to say something else, something personal, but the moment shattered with a sudden alarm. On the screens, a massive energy signature appeared, far larger than any ship she had seen. Its trajectory was direct, calculated, and deadly. Lyra froze. "What is that?" Elias' jaw tightened. "A warship built to annihilate fleets, and it's coming straight for you." The realization hit her like a physical blow. Every heartbeat was a drum of fear and excitement. They could run, but they wouldn't survive the jump. They had to fight. Lyra's hands moved over the controls, issuing orders faster than she had ever dared. "All units, defensive formation Delta, shields up, evasive maneuvers." Elias leaned close. "Focus on the weak points, aim for the engines and the command bridge, disrupt their coordination." Her heart raced, but so did something else, a thrilling, dangerous bond forming between them. Every glance, every word, every shared decision pulled them closer. She could feel it, a tether that defied logic and reason. The warship opened fire. Lasers and plasma tore through space. Explosions rocked the fleet. She gritted her teeth, bracing, executing maneuvers Elias suggested. Somehow, against impossible odds, they began to chip away at the enemy. Lyra felt the weight of command, the weight of survival, and the weight of something she couldn't name, all pressing at once. Elias' hand brushed hers on the console as he guided her. The touch was brief, yet electric, and her pulse jumped. She realized in that instant that she didn't just trust him with strategy, she was beginning to trust him with everything. But even as their teamwork bore fruit, the enemy adapted. Another strike came, closer, faster, more precise. One of their key ships exploded. Lyra's stomach lurched. "Elias," she whispered. "I know," he said. His voice was low, steady, "but we're not done." Her mind raced. They had survived every impossible moment so far, but this was the ultimate test. Lyra looked at him, her heart pounding. I've underestimated humans." Elias' gaze softened, almost a smile tugging at his lips. "And I think you're learning that humans don't always need to be underestimated." A beat passed between them, long enough for her to feel the heat of closeness, the unspoken understanding that they were tethered not just by survival, but by something more fragile, more dangerous: trust. Outside, the Helios corridor burned with fire and destruction. Inside, Lyra and Elias prepared for the fight of their lives. And neither of them could know what would happen next. The Helios corridor glowed with devastation. Enemy fire streaked through the void like deadly lightning, but Lyra's fleet moved with a precision born of desperation and of Elias' guidance. The massive warship loomed ahead, its shadow eclipsing distant stars. Its weapons charged, each pulse promising annihilation. Lyra's hands shook on the controls, but she fought to steady them, to steady herself. "Focus," Elias said quietly, standing beside her. "We've survived worse." Lyra's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to scream, to panic, to give in to the fear clawing at her chest. But she didn't, not because of duty, not just because of survival, because he was there. Because in the storm of chaos, he had become her anchor. "Highness," Elias said softly, "trust yourself, trust me." She inhaled sharply. Every maneuver, every calculated risk, every sharp command was executed. Shields held, cannons fired, evasive thrusters flared. The enemy faltered, and Lyra's fleet pressed the attack. Suddenly, the enemy warship shuddered violently. Its core destabilized. Warning lights blared across its hull. Lyra's eyes widened. "We did it," she breathed. Elias turned to her, face streaked with sweat and blood from minor injuries, eyes blazing with quiet triumph. "For now," he said, "victory is never final." But as the enemy ship broke apart in a brilliant cascade of energy, a cheer rose across the fleet, aliens and humans alike celebrating survival. Lyra leaned back, exhaustion weighing her down, but her chest burned with something more profound. Awe, not just of victory, but of the human who had changed her entire perspective. Elias stepped closer, brushing debris from her shoulder. His hand lingered, warm, steady. "You fought well," he said. Lyra looked up at him, and for the first time the queenly mask fell away. "No," she whispered. "You saved us, all of us. I mocked humans. I doubted them. I doubted you." He shook his head, eyes soft. "You're learning, that's enough." She laughed quietly, a sound mingling relief, amazement, and something dangerous, something she refused to name. "Learning from a human, I never imagined this." Elias smiled faintly, but there was something unspoken in his eyes. Respect, admiration, perhaps something more. Lyra stepped closer, their hands brushing, then holding. The warmth of his grip grounded her, made the world make sense again. I want to understand," she said, voice low. "Not just your power, but you." He leaned in slightly, close enough that her heartbeat thudded in her ears. "Then I'll show you, if you'll let me." For the first time, Lyra realized that strength was not just about fleets or weapons, or even about surviving the impossible. Strength was courage, courage to trust, courage to stand beside someone, human, alien, or otherwise, and face the impossible together. And in that moment, amidst the shattered remnants of the Helios corridor and the victory that had come at the edge of annihilation, something shifted between them. Lyra, the alien princess who had laughed at stories of human power, now found herself captivated, not by legend, not by myth, but by the man who had defied everything to save her, her fleet, and her people. Elia's hand tightened around hers. "Whatever comes next," he said quietly, "we face it together." Lyra nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of awe, fear, and something dangerously intoxicating. "Together," she echoed. Outside, the corridor glimmered, the fires of battle fading into starlight. Inside, a human and a queen stood side by side, bound by trust, respect, and the undeniable spark between them. And for the first time in her life, Lyra understood that humans were not fragile. They were not myths. They were fire, relentless, unyielding, and capable of changing worlds. Her laughter returned, but this time it was different. Warm, alive, hopeful. And Elias smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning.